Palestinian lives and to continue their occupation. Today we're going to look at 5 examples of this behavior. Number 1, self-defense. We hear this line over and over again. Israel has the right to defend itself. This is used by a nuclear power with one of the world's most technologically advanced militaries to justify the ongoing oppression and occupation of a mostly unarmed civilian population. So what are they defending themselves from exactly? Palestinian resistance comes in many forms. When it's protests, Israeli police and occupation forces respond with violence. When it's promoting and supporting the BDS movement, Israel and its supporters respond by crying anti-Semitism. And when groups like Hamas are forced by desperation to respond with armed struggle, Israel causes widespread devastation. And for some reason, we never hear about the Palestinians' right to defend themselves. But in fact, they do have that right, and it's guaranteed under international law. United Nations Resolution 37/43, and I quote, reaffirms the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples for independence and liberation from colonial and foreign domination and foreign occupation by all available means, including armed struggle, end quote. So if the all-powerful Israel has the right to defend itself from a civilian population, why can't the victims of their colonial empire do the same? Number 2, terrorists. Israel, with the support of the mainstream media all over the world, covers the Palestinians with a blanket statement of they're terrorists. But let's break this down. In the West Bank, there are no armed resistance groups that are currently operating out against the Israeli occupation. So if this terrorist label is applied to Palestinians in the West Bank, it's being applied to civilians and nonviolent resistors. These are not terrorists. In Gaza, there are armed resistance groups operating, but a majority of the population there are civilians. In fact, 50% of them are children. Hamas, the most prominent group that is operating in Gaza, of course, is a political group with an armed wing. The United States, Canada, the EU, Israel, and Japan all consider the entire group of Hamas to be a terrorist organization, but there are many countries around the world that only consider the armed wing a terrorist group. In fact, in 2018, the UN General Assembly rejected a U.S. resolution that condemned Hamas